What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are going to be having an interview with Hanny of Agabyss.com, the third-party transformer distributor, as well as many other things. We're going to go over his story. We're going to talk about how he went from kind of working at KB Toys to running his own convention and his own store. We're going to cover the whole gambit. This is an interesting one because it's one of the few that actually have had a success story, so we'll have to see how that differs. It's a pretty good and interesting conversation. Per usual, this is a abbreviated conversation. The full 50-minute conversation is available on Patreon. That's where that's at. So we're not going to waste a whole lot of time, but I do have a little bit of housekeeping. The dummies conversation regarding tune or stylized. This is one of those ones that just went super misunderstood, I think, according to the comments. I don't think I have enough time to explain the nuance to that conversation, but the problem isn't from our point of view that things are done in a tune deco. The problem is when you have multiple companies doing the exact same thing. Then you get left with what we have now, which is third party and shambles. As for the verses, I missed a elbow articulation point for Magic Square, but even if in the toe articulation doesn't count because I missed the toe articulation on the New Age also, so that wouldn't do anything there. But even if it gave Magic Square another point, they still lose by one, so it doesn't ultimately change the end result, but it does make it closer, and that's fair, and I 100% did miss that joint. So for those that go back and watch that or have not watched it and plan on watching it, just know it might be tighter by 1 point, but the results still remain the same. And then for King Lion, I don't know what a Zoid is, but I'll take your word for it that it looks like it. Maybe I'll look it up later. Probably won't, but maybe I will. And with that, let's go ahead and get into this, and we'll go ahead and start with the beginning.
So let's get right into it then. Let's start at the beginning. That's where I like to start.
So I worked at KB Toys. I was a manager there for a few years.
Okay.
And we'd have people lining up at the door every day looking for whatever figures they wanted.
Right.
And, I figured that this whole collecting thing didn't happen during our childhood. Our parents weren't doing any of that.
Right.
Now we have Star Wars coming back, Spawn, everything was happening all at once. All of it.
Oh, so yeah.
You get, and then you start picking things up at rummage sales, picking things up at stores, going through whatever you find at a flea market, and then sell it on eBay, see what you can get. And then I started seeing money coming from it.
Huh. So so you learn, you kind of like cut your teeth on KB Toys as a supervisor.
We were in a mall here named Mayfair Mall.
Right.
And I ran that store for, 4 or 5 years. I put us at number 11 out of like the 4,000 stores in the country. So I kind of had some business. So in school, I took business, by the way. I had, I started liberal arts and then I went to business. And then after that, I just, I'm like, this could be something. And then I was like, it's my favorite thing in the world now. It's my hobby. So why not? That type of deal.
Yeah.
So I ran with it. Okay, so there's another component to this. We're foreign, essentially, right? So we're from Egypt.
Okay.
Foreign parents tend to think you're going to be a doctor or an engineer.
Yeah.
So I started school with that. I started school going that way, and then at some point in time, I had to break to my parents that I wasn't going to do that, and then I was going to try to be, go into a business.
Uh-huh.
And then you had to explain to them that you're going to go into a business selling toys, and that's...
Yeah, I'm sure that went over really well.
Yeah, and then my dad just looked at me. He was like, "What are you talking about?"
They see that these opportunities are like they've made these sacrifices for you to have these opportunities afforded to you, and they want you to take full advantage of them.
Yes, very true. Yeah, they both came. They were first generation. They were the ones to land in America and work whatever type of jobs they could get. Just, raise my brother and I essentially, and then you're going to college, no problem. You're going to be a doctor or an architect or an engineer or something.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'm working on that.
Right. So, do you graduate college with a business degree?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make some noise for that. All right. So then tie that into the eBay for me. Make those dots connect for me.
Okay. So eBay continued on for a very long time, and it was stuff like sometimes finding stuff at stores and finding stuff in rummage sales, trying to get a website put up. But it was kind of early on in the game where the website thing was tough. They didn't have a lot of the shopping carts at the time were they couldn't handle what you needed them to do. Most websites were for, take a look at my cat and what it does type of deal.
Right.
It just became a thing where it couldn't happen. So continued on eBay, and then we started trying to put up a real site. I'd say 2003.
Okay.
Was my first attempt. Then we went on a couple more years, and what was the next thing? My brother had some friends who knew how to make websites. They came through. We played the same game for who knows how long, and I don't know. And then that died. Mm-hmm. So
Second
But
death.
with that third and last death would be, we just found something online. It was outsourced. It was a campus in India, and there was a language barrier. There was a time barrier. We went back and forth all the time trying to get things done. And we were correcting just like spelling and simple words, sentence structure and things. And then same thing, dragged on, and then nothing. And remind you, all those times money was spent.
Right.
It wasn't like, let's just do this and then I'll pay you at the end.
And this was all an attempt to kind of circumvent the eBay system so you could have a direct shop without having splits and having to worry about all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the longest time, Agabyss.com just took you to our eBay store.
Gotcha.
And then finally one day, I have a close friend who's been around through all of this, by the way. And he's like, I'm going to just give it a shot. Puts it up in 2 days.
Wow.
A brand new site.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it was sitting there. We were waiting to test it and all that stuff. And then Keith from KFC points everybody in our direction because we still had a Polyon in stock. But the site wasn't technically up yet.
Well, let me walk you back a little bit before that. When did you start going from selling your own stuff to distributing?
Oh, yeah. 2006.
Okay.
Reached out to Hasbro and got a Hasbro account. You had to have certain minimums in place to how much you could order and all that stuff, and it was a little hard for me at the time, but I made it happen. And then around the same time, I landed a distributor in Japan, and I remember the first thing I imported was the MP3 player Soundwave.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah. Way back.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things I imported. Then the second thing was the first Masterpiece Megatron.
You've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, and I don't think people, it took us so long to get the website up that they don't understand how long we've really been around.
Yeah.
Like we've been in the background. We've been to BotCons during that time. I mean, a lot. Like, without having a website, man, you kind of just get overlooked. That's just the way it goes.
It's interesting.
I kept selling small bits until I made up the money because I didn't really start with anything. Everything went right back in. Then the big order was the one with the Soundwave, which at the time I think cost me about $17,000. So it's pretty much everything I had saved.
Right.
Then it gets held up in customs, and it gets held up in customs for 6 months because of child safety. It didn't have anything on it that said, choking hazard or whatever. And I learned quickly that would be an issue going forward. So it eventually got sent back to Japan. And then by the time I finally had it in my hands, everybody else had it.
Right.
Everybody else had been through it, and now I'm just sitting on it. So
God.
Yeah, that was a big hit to me because it took me forever to sell that stuff. Like it was also the iPod Prime that had the trailer that converted. It had the Rumble Frenzy headphones. All of that was in that shipment. The way I bounced back from that later was the MP Megatron, the MP05. So
what happened there?
I got it early. And I got it unmodded. It didn't have the cap on it.
Gotcha.
We had that on display at BotCon, I think, 07. Yeah, so now we're at about 2007. And then just right before the show, we were selling a ton of it on eBay. And then at the show, we sold a ton of it, and that helped recoup. Eventually, all the stuff that was sitting from the Soundwave, sold off. It took a few years, but that all sold off. And then now I had some money to work with.
You have a Hasbro account, and you're kind of meddling in some import stuff. Get me from there to like the mid-teens where we start knowing you as a major third-party distributor.
It started with my friend doing the website for me. In the beginning, it was very hard to get these third-party companies to communicate. I think I was the second company to communicate with Fans Toys after, I believe, Capture Prey first. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And then we got in with them early on, and then that was another big boost, having those and having them early and selling through them 3 or 4 times because it was a huge deal. It was the beginning of Masterpiece third party, essentially.
Right.
So that happened, and then tried to go after a bunch of others. So whoever would reply, we'd work with. We worked directly with Toy World at the time and iGear at the time. And then, Make Toys. Make Toys was a tough one, man. I chased him down for years just to try to get a hold of him. Eventually, it became a thing where, he's a really nice guy. We worked together on a few things, and then we did the Agabyss event across from BotCon in 2015.
The first time I met you was at another convention in Chicago where you didn't even have a dealer space on the floor.
Right.
And I just, it's funny because like how much you've grown since then. I just thought you were a guy like any other
room party.
Right. But when I walked in there and I saw just the abundance of stuff, and you had artwork, I think like maybe the stuff the DACA Toys artwork.
Yep.
Yeah, like you had a lot of like little interesting stuff that I was like, oh, this guy's tuned in differently than an obvious like just a room party.
Yeah. That was essentially set up to be a store. So we got a suite and we lined all the walls with shelving, the tables, and pretty much everything. Like I remember right when you walked in, there was that matrix that you could open up and it would light up right on a table right by the doorway.
Yeah.
I think we had some snacks and drinks.
Yeah.
Like we just basically set it all up, hang out, man. Anybody could come and hang out at the time.
But then, I remember that you were involved in that party that was across the street from Hasbro. This was when the BotCon had put the kind of ban on third party.
Yep.
On third party, and then there was I remember it was almost like I didn't go to that, but I remember there was like rumors circulating, like I hear there's a third party event, like a secret event across, you know what I mean? Like it was like a cloak and dagger kind of swag to it.
Yep. So basically, I got in my mind that I'm going to go to BotCon. I had a booth at BotCon. In all fairness, I wasn't just going to steal their thunder, but I went to BotCon, had a table there, and then across the way, I had to sell because at that point I was third party heavy, and I was like, I got to sell all this.
Well, that was the prime of it.
Yes, it was. Dude, that was we had the first Fans Toys Insecticon there, the test shot,
the bombshell. Yeah.
Yep, we had the Make Toys Chrome Dome. We had the Make Toys Pandanus. We had the Dune Buggy, the Beachcomber, essentially from Keith. Like I went all out to reach out to these companies that I've developed relationships with,
right? And
I put it all in there, and then I essentially just got an entire room and the whole thing. We had TV and video games and tables to hang out and open your stuff. It was just we basically rented a hall across the way at the hotel across the street.
Yeah, it was very well received. I remember just word of mouth.
You'll see in BotCon, and that's kind of the same demeanor. I try to do whatever it takes, man. I want everybody to have a good time, and I want everybody to think this is memorable.
Right. Then you start having a kind of major presence at events. Like it stops feeling like kind of like an inside baseball kind of brand, and it starts feeling like a major competitor. You know what I mean? The displays changed and the presence changed, and Agabyss started being in like the TF Source BBTS orbit.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a big orbit, but someday maybe, right?
Right.
But to be quite honest, it started out with fake it till you make it. I mean,
really?
That's really what it really, I mean, everything went back in. You pretty much lived with nothing. You did whatever you had to do. If you have a vision, you know that the only way to get to it is to like put everything into it. Then that's what had to happen at the time. So yeah, we got to a point where we put everything in, then we can grow it, and then we had to do a huge splash, and that was what we did at shows. And then I think that, like you're saying, is what gave people the whole different mindset of this is not a smaller seller. This isn't like he doesn't sell in groups and this type of thing.
It is. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, it's ultimately his branding, isn't it? It is. It's acting as if, it's okay to be homeless if you drive a Ferrari to the party and everybody sees you get out of it.
Right. I mean, I won't lie. We started this whole thing in the basement of my house, hauling packages up and down the stairs, scraping your knuckles against the drywall bumps,
right,
up and down the stairs, whatever it took, man. Like I was telling you. And then, once we got to a point where we had shelving and stuff, that wouldn't work anymore. So we had to figure things out.
But then your name started getting attached to TFCon. I remember you had the biggest, most impressive display at a show I have ever seen from anyone ever in the history of Transformer shows.
Well, that's great to hear. That means a lot.
That was at Reston, I believe.
It could have been, yeah, I believe so.
It seemed like the centerpiece of the show in many ways. I saw, your name on their and their name on your and you know what I mean? Like, and then the next time I feel like I see you is at Baltimore, and you don't even have a booth there.
Well, to be 100% honest, there was no bad blood there. There was nothing that happened in that way. It just became a thing of I knew this BotCon thing was happening, and we're in the midst of working on that. We were in the midst of dealing with COVID issues. We're dealing with putting up a store here and, warehouse and all that other stuff. It was so much going on at the same time that 2019 was the last show we did, I think, anywhere.
Huh. Okay. Well, I mean, that because I think the optics of that were weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that definitely.
I know, and I'm sure, just like you perceived it, I'm sure it was perceived that way by others.
That definitely puts it in a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like we couldn't, like the manpower wasn't there, and then we had labor shortages because no one was working. There's just so much going on.
So I got another question for you. Transformers is your first love. Transformers kind of opened the doors for you to kind of get into He-Man and G.I. Joe and other, namely, honestly, cartoon properties, right? Like, is what it seems like. We're not talking about Star Wars. We're not talking about DC. We're not talking about Marvel, which is, you know what I mean? I bring this up and reiterate it to say, I remember your website when it was just kind of getting going, at least to my knowledge, getting going. And now I go on it, and there's SH Figuarts, there's Storm Collectibles, there's wide variety of stuff. So when did you really start spreading your wings, and what led to that?
I think it was 2017. I started to get worried as I saw a third party put everything out. Like, you're going to get to a point where the G1ers are going to take what they get, and then they're going to get 50 versions of it, and then they're going to settle on it, and then after that, just in case it disappears, we have to have other things. And then some of those other properties are like, I like Silverhawks, I like He-Man, I like these things, I'd like to see them here. Right. Even McFarlane stuff,
right?
All of that stuff.
You saw that third party may not have the same sort of constant foothold that it maybe once had between like 2016 2017, and you decided to kind of like broaden your horizons with what you were selling, because you sell, My Little Pony, you sell everything now.
Right. And we were always going to try to expand into everything that we could. It just happened sooner because I started to think, you have to have, it's just like stocks. You got to expand your portfolio to stay safe.
I guess we'll move on into BotCon. So you have this BotCon show coming up now in just a couple weeks. How are things shaping up?
Pretty good. Stressful as all hell. And then pretty good. Like, there's so many things in the mix right now, so many things to finalize that you're afraid you're going to miss something. Like, did I get this sign printed? Did this look this way? Is the comic right? Is that right? You have to okay this, you have to okay that, you have to okay this. And you're going through this, and there's a million things going on at all times. Like, even still, like the day I probably pack up and leave, I'm going to be thinking I forgot something. You just never know.
You got 2 weeks. I want to give you time to make a last stab at anybody who might be on the fence and tell them why they should come.
All right, so let's talk. We've talked to voice actors in our last video, right? So I think we covered everyone else. Since then, we've added Greg Berger and David Kay. We may add one more. We're looking to, availability and time and space. Right. So the number of companies that are involved has grown. So originally it was 5-2 Toys. We've now brought in Toys Alliance that does Acid Storm and, the old MAS line, the large scale figures, with their new Archicore line, which is transforming robots that essentially come with little Warhammer figures. Huh. And we have an exclusive for that's going to be shown at the show, and you can pre-order it at the show. Okay. So those at the show, based on where their location is and all that other stuff, are going to be able to scan a QR code and buy it. Same will go we will have some other third-party exclusives that will be mentioned later. Pretty cool ones, I would say. Last of the Seekers. So Riot Press is putting out a comic book with an entire transforming toy line called Last of the Seekers. There's 3 styles to that. There's the original character, there's a stealth mode of that character, and then there's another character that's going to be exclusive to BotCon and exclusive to the show only. It'll be the only way to get it. Oh yeah, artists as well. Yeah. So Andrew Griffith, okay, Livio Romandelli, okay, Philip Salazar, Winston Bolin. Of course, can't forget Robbie Musso. Robbie Musso did our box out for the 5-2 Toys. Right. He also helped us on a really big project for something like we have a framed portrait for Frank Welker of all the characters he did, and that was Robbie Musso's work. Very cool. Yeah, and we're trying to go for the everything aspect. And what I mean by that is a bunch of toy brands that transform or that are robotic, hopefully tying them together at some point in time in the future. Right. How many dealers are you looking at, roughly? I think we got 48 different dealers with multiple booths. That's pretty significant. Yeah, we're packing them in. Like the room is set up in a way where it's going to be conducive to walking around, but it's still going to be packed no matter how you do it. Yeah. If I could just interject, I forgot 2 companies that are actually pretty important. So please. Ramen Toy is going to be there. Oh, dude, I am looking forward to that. Gloria from their mask line. Yeah. Oh my God. Right. So I can't give details as to what or how or if there's exclusives or not, but I can tell you they're going to be there in whatever capacity they can be there in because they have a couple brands. That's exciting. Okay, so then the other one is Nacelle. So Nacelle is the company that did the Toys That Made Us show on Netflix.
Okay.
They are also bringing in their toy line, because now they're a toy company. They own Power Lords, Sectars.
Oh, I saw that Sectars was coming back.
Yeah, and RoboForce. So, I mean, that's just, I think they have more properties than that even, and they're going to be at the show.
Interesting.
So a lot of stuff to look at and possibilities for exclusives.
Yeah. In closing, what kind of makes this interview with the distributor interesting is this is the first one that I've talked to that's still around. Yeah. You survived. So
thankfully, yes.
I have two questions. Question number one, why do you think you're still here?
Slow and steady. Like I told you, I didn't start with, I think it was $340 something is what I started with. It took a long time. There have been others that have started after me that have grown so far past me because they started with something, but it took forever to do it. And doing it since the 90s and being, I don't know, man, I'm disciplined and dedicated, persistent. So a lot of these things, like even with all the failures that occurred, I mean, I've told you about a few of them. I just keep going.
Right.
And that's kind of just my personality. Like, no matter how it goes, like I try not to give up on anything.
Twofold for this, unfortunately, but how are you doing? I hope you're doing well now. And what do you have planned for the future, if anything, for Agabyss?
So we are doing well.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, thank you. So the store's going to get expanded. Hopefully we can make some time. BotCon actually put a bunch of other stuff on hold. We're hoping for a new website, hoping for this storefront to be finished, working on the next BotCon, and expanding product lines, and then coming up with some ideas.
To close it out, I want to take some time and give you some flowers. You've always been a gentleman to me. You've always been straight up with me, and I appreciate you for that. If anybody goes back through my catalog and looks for the music video of Smoke and Mirrors, that was in Hanny's hotel room that he allowed for that to be done in, which I've never forgot. Actually, as fate would have it, I don't actually buy a whole lot of Transformers anymore. But when I do, and I know you've got it, you're one of the ones I'm quick to hit up and say, hey, do you have this? And if you do, you do. And if you don't, you don't. It's, you know what I mean? There's no pressure on my end, but you've always been accommodating. And I celebrate your growth. I'm happy for your growth, so to speak, on all that. I wish you nothing but success, not only at this show, but in the future.
Thank you so much. Well, that means a great deal to me. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to get out of here. Anything else you got to say before we go?
Nope. Just hope to see you all at BotCon.
And what day is it and where is it?
Nashville, Tennessee, August 25th through the 28th. So less than 2 weeks from now.
And I will have links to all of that information in the description.
If you are there, come say hi.
Absolutely.
I'll be, in every spot in the show.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you for the time.
So that's it. I appreciate you guys giving it a listen. I appreciate Hanny for taking time out of his day. I know it's super crunch right now because he's got all this work going on. But I thought it would be beneficial for both you guys and him to kind of know his story before this show kicks off here in a couple weeks. If you can make it down there, I suggest you try to make it down there and support the dude. It's always good to have more Transformers conventions. He is a good dude. He's looked out for me in the past, and I've looked out for him in the past, and we have a good relationship. This is not a paid ad, but I do recommend him as a distributor or as a dealer. If you're looking to buy stuff from an online retail place, that's the #1 Transformer spot in my opinion. I don't buy an awful lot of Transformers these days, but if I did, it would be from him. All right, I'll be back on Monday. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.